Thank you so much for your patience. We are back and ready for more, right? More inspiration and more information to help us kind of go beyond words. And so I want to present to you our Dean of Undergraduate Studies here at Cal State LA, Michelle Hawley, who will moderate this next panel.
Thank you, Valerie. I am so loving being here. Thank you for inviting me to be here and moderate this panel. And I'm loving the chat. I feel like it's a conference in and of itself. So this is just amazing. Our panel right now is focused on paths to achieving Excelencia. And it's the panelists are going to talk about a number of things, including how to achieve the Excelencia seal of approval. And we're going to begin by hearing from Jennifer Gomez-Chavez, who currently serves as Vice President for Institutional Engagement with Excelencia in Education. She is a native of New Mexico and has worked with low-income and students from underrepresented backgrounds throughout her positions with LULAC, the University of New Mexico, and the Unidos Project, a project to increase Latino success across the country. She holds a BA in criminal justice, a master's in counseling, and a doctorate in educational leadership. So I will turn it over to Jennifer Gomez-Chavez, our first speaker.
Buenos dias, everyone. I am actually going to share my slides. Can you hear me? Perfecto. Okay, let me get these up. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day, and I want to tell you that I am just elated to listen to the conversations that really get us to thinking on how we intentionally serve Latino students. So I am going to share my screen. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And again, buenos dias. On behalf of our co-founders, Sarita Brown and Deborah Santiago, I bring you greetings from them and from Excelencia. And we are so honored to have been invited to this important convening with Southern California Consortium on HSIs, as together we build common cause on Latino student success. Again, I'm Jennifer Gomez-Chavez, and I have been recently joined the Excelencia team as the Vice President for Institutional Engagement. As you all already know, but I'd like to do a quick review. Excelencia was founded with the goal to unapologetically address equity using a Latino lens. Our approach is unique in that we work with institutions to deepen our relationships and create confianza, the trust, to listen, to learn, and facilitate leaders and their teams to transform their institutions. For Excelencia, we work with a variety of institutions, so no matter what size of institutions they might be, large or small, we work together to promote a common cause for institutions to intentionally serve Latino students. It's about facilitating and guiding institutions to identify, implement, and scale the practices, policies, and programs that accelerate success. So our strategies and policy priorities are the elements that we believe truly transform institutions to intentionally serve Latino students. So we believe that these are the core components for institutional transformation. One of the ways we get asked often, how can we get involved? How can our institution, how can our presidents get involved with Excelencia? And there are two ways. The first is Excelencia in Action, and the second is Presidents for Latino Student Success. Excelencia in Action began in 2011, and the intent was to form a network of result-oriented leaders to leverage their expertise and resources to accelerate Latino and all student success. Now, the Presidents for Latino Student Success, which we refer to, and I know many of y'all are familiar with our P4LSS, and that was created in 2014. It provides the space and learning environment for institutional leaders who are committed to transforming their institutions to better serve Latino students. They too are a part of the Excelencia in Action Network and the commitment to learn promising practices, reviewing and learning systems changes, while also amplifying efforts at the national level, because we know that we want to raise our voices as a collective for national efforts. Through this strong national network, institutions are able to achieve meaningful results. They're able to engage in cohort-based technical assistant opportunities and be introduced to learn the confianza approach. I want to mention that any institution, as I get into the Seal of Excelencia, one of the main requirements before applying to the Seal of Excelencia is to become affiliated through the Presidents for Latino Student Success. I need to make that clear because I know that we get many questions about that. And this is because we want to ensure that leaders are committed to the work. So that is why we have that requirement. So let's get to the framework. And as you can see here, here is the Seal of Excelencia Framework. This framework stems from the many years that Excelencia has worked. I'm going to say about 26 years working with institutions from higher education. The framework provides institutions the ability to evaluate their mission and strategy to see if they are in fact articulating intentionally serving Latino students. They're able to review their data and practice to determine if they are disaggregating their data by race and ethnicity, and if their institutional practices are aligned to really increase Latino student success. A review of their human resources on how they recruit and hire and onboard faculty and staff, and how they incorporate those practices to serve Latino students. A deep dive on their communication practices, both inward and outward, as they demonstrate how they promote serving Latino students and how they are creating institutional climates and movements. And of course, institutional culture, allows institutions to really take a deep dive and evaluate and demonstrate to us their strategies for creating welcoming environments, healthy and positive campus climates where students have a high sense of belonging and are truly supported to thrive. Since Excelencia's existence, the goal has always been to address the structural inequities that exist within institutions and to really hold institutions accountable and have them commit to serving Latino students and post-traditional students. And so in 2019, the Seal of Certification was launched, and I think I have the wrong slide up there. The Seal of Certification was launched, and we're very proud of that. 9 institutions were certified in 2020, 5 institutions were certified, and we just recently certified 10 institutions. This, I want to reemphasize, is that this process is a self-selection process, and we guide institutions using the framework to identify areas of growth, as well as highlighting their areas of success. Because of the growing demand of people and institutions really wanting to take part of the Seal of Excelencia, we have ramped up our technical assistance. And here you can see the different ways that we provide cohort-based learning, which, we integrate our confianza approach to support institutional transformation needed to increase Latino student success. So outlined here are some of our TA programs. Again, Excelencia's approach is to be transformative. We want to partner and collaborate with institutions, help them learn. We also learn as well. But we really want to, through our TAs, to provide the opportunities for them to refine their plans, and to also set dedicated time with their teams as they shape their students' experience, as they demonstrate their their intentionality for Latino student success. So as you can see here, these are 4 examples of our technical assistance programs.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm so
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you. This is a really interesting, important information. Your timer just ended.
Okay.
So if you'd like to wrap it up and bring to a
Yes.
quick close, we can come back with questions later.
Perfect. So I just wanted to say that thank you, and I apologize for not seeing the timer. But here you have just a map that represents all of our Presidents for Latino Student Success Network. And I do just want to end with the timeline, the application timeline to apply for the Seal of Excelencia, which it begins in March, and we will now in January be also releasing our calendar, our annual calendar for different programs and TA opportunities. I thank you, and we hope that you will engage with us.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Joanna Zimring-Towne, and she is a faculty member, counselor in the Los Angeles Community College District. She served in a variety of campus and district roles for the past 13 years and has extensive peer experience in program development and management, and has been the faculty coordinator for the Los Angeles College Promise since 2017. And previously, she was director of new student programs at Pierce College. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. I'm also joined by my colleague, Paulina, Irias, and I'll have her introduce herself in just a moment. But we will be here talking about specifically the Los Angeles College Promise program, which is the premier program of the LA Community College District, and specifically how that program serves our Latinx community. The Los Angeles Community College District is the largest community college district in the nation. And certainly we educate a huge percentage of Los Angeles youth and also adults. So what LACCD does is important to our region and important to the state and important to the nation. And we take that responsibility very seriously. Most of our institutions are Hispanic serving institutions, and the LA College Promise program is predominantly serving our Latinx students. So we think that by highlighting what we're doing in the LA College Promise program, you'll get a sense of LACCD's commitment to our Latinx students and what we are trying to intentionally do, as I heard some of the previous panelists said, in terms of intentionally serving our Latinx students and not just sort of hanging our hats on the designation of a Hispanic serving institution. As Michelle mentioned, I'm the faculty coordinator for the Los Angeles College Promise, and sort of my day job is a faculty counselor, but I've been with the district for 13 years, and the past 4 years I've been coordinating the LA College Promise program district-wide. I'll let Pauline introduce herself briefly, and then I'll go ahead and share my slides. Pauline?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Paulina, and I'm actually the Los Angeles College Promise counselor. So I help a lot of our Promise students with onboarding and getting familiar with our campuses at LACCD. Hello.
And Pauline herself was previously a success coach. She's sort of gone up the ranks within LA College Promise, and she'll also be able to speak a little bit about the student experience as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and ask if you all can see that. Great, wonderful. So just to give you a quick snapshot in case you aren't familiar with the LA College Promise, it was announced in 2016 by Mayor Garcetti, and our first cohort was fall 2017. So we are entering our 5th cohort right now in fall 2021. We have served approximately 20,000 students. I think it's just now at it's like 19,996. So it's really close to 20,000 students have enrolled in the program to date since that first cohort in fall 2017. Approximately 80% of the students that are in College Promise are already eligible for free college through what I like to call the Board of Governors grant, but what is technically known as the College Promise grant. This is very confusing to our students because actually the College Promise grant has nothing to do with the College Promise program, and it's a confusing thing at the state level for our students. But one thing to note is that, again, 80% of our students that are in LA College Promise are already eligible for free tuition, but being able to communicate to all students that college is free for them is really important, because you can just have that single messaging to all of our incoming first-year, first-time students that college can be free to them regardless of anything else. So even though they would already be eligible, being able to have that messaging really brings in a lot of students. And we did see that our enrollment of students, specifically from our feeder schools of LAUSD, but overall through the Los Angeles region, increased in terms of that direct matriculant students finishing high school and coming directly to the LA Community College District, and also those students attending full-time, which is a requirement of the LA College Promise program. And I'll share some of those statistics. Approximately half of our students in the program receive the Pell Grant, and almost 80% of our students are identified as Latinx versus 67% district-wide. So Latinx students are overrepresented in the LA College Promise program. So what makes LA College Promise different than other Promise programs that might exist? So since our inception, the LA College Promise program has been focused on success and completion. So we do not see ourselves as a financial aid program. We're not just an enrollment program. We are focused on success and completion. So to that end is a holistic program that requires, AOC here refers to assessment, orientation, and counseling. Assessment, luckily, yay, is no longer a thing, but we still sort of use that term AOC. But essentially, we require our students to do that initial onboarding that's going to help them be successful. We also require all of our students to go through a transition program, again, to help prepare them to be successful. And then our students participate in counseling and success coaching that Pauline's going to go into a little bit more. The other thing is we have open eligibility. So essentially any first-time full-time student is available to us. We launched at scale. Our first cohort was over 4,000 students. So we have no income requirements, no GPA requirements, no age or residency or high school requirements. As long as you're a first-time student, as long as you are eligible for California in-state tuition and you're willing to go full-time, which are the requirements of the legislation, then we welcome you into LA College Promise. We put no additional eligibility requirements, which certainly was unique when we started. It's become a little bit more common for Promise programs, but certainly is unique. As I mentioned, we did launch at scale. And one of the other things that makes us unique is that we are really a regional effort, right? So this isn't just about LACCD. You all were speaking in the comments earlier about intersegmental partnerships and getting rid of silos, and that is one of our goals in LA College Promise. Certainly, it's a district-wide effort, so even that alone is pretty impressive. We have 9 colleges, and all of our 9 colleges implement the LA College Promise in this same basic way. And then we coordinate with the mayor's office, with our feeder high schools, with other programs like Unite LA and the LA Compact to make sure that we're having a regional impact. And our goal is to create a city of graduates, whether that's certificates, associate's degrees, transfers to bachelor's degrees, whatever the students might be wanting to receive. So all students are welcome in LA College Promise, whether they're pursuing a 1-semester career certificate or they, want to go on and transfer and get their bachelor's degree.
Joanna,
And then-
thank you
yeah.
very much. I am sorry to cut you off, but your timer just went up.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have some questions for you.
All right.
And I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker. So our next speaker is Paulina Irias.
No. So Pauline was actually part of my presentation. Yeah. So
okay, great.
does that mean
Would
we have more
Paulina
time or
like
no?
to make one more minute of closing comments?
So Pauline, why don't you go ahead and just speak? I'll bring up the slide again and you can speak to that slide.
Are beyond the tuition?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's me. So LA College Promise is beyond the tuition. So if free tuition was all it took, then the block free waiver would have solved our problems years ago. The way that LA Promise goes beyond the free tuition is we require our students to do a summer transition experience. Basically, during the summer transition experience, we're letting our students get familiar with the campus, get familiar with staff, and all that great stuff. In addition to that, we also require our students to take English and math courses, just like previously, due to the new law, AB 705, gives our students opportunity to start at college level math and English courses. So we encourage our students to take those courses the first semester. In addition to that, we also include success coaching and require students to do success activities. I myself used to be a success coach, so I used to help students with navigating the campus. Also, with any issues as far as like maybe they're having time management, that they might not be able to handle time management since it's their first experience. So I would help the students along that way. In addition to that, we also have an intentional partnership with the mayor, LAUSD, United LA, to increase student support and opportunities as well. So do I still have some more time?
I think that brings us to the end, but thank you very much. And I'm sure people have questions.
Okay.
Our final speaker is Carolina Cardenas Costilla. And Carolina received her BA in Sociology from UC Santa Cruz, her MPA from San Diego State, and her EDD from Cal State Fullerton. She is the Director of Academic Preparation Policies and Programs for the 23 campus CSU system. And her position at the Chancellor's Office focuses on making college education accessible to all graduating high school seniors. And she's also conducting doctoral research. Welcome, Carolina.
Thank you. And I'm hoping I can get my screen to share here appropriately. Let's see. I don't know. Can you see my, hold on. Can you actually see the presentation on the screen right now?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, okay, because I can't. So I apologize for that. Can you see, I'm hoping that you can see it in presenter mode. Is that correct?
It is not in presenter mode. It is in the other mode,
Let's see if this works.
the creator mode.
How about there?
No, if you go to view or you go to slideshow
Yep.
and
So-
then view.
That's what I thought I had done. Oh, there we go. Can you do it now? Can you,
No.
is it a presenter mode? I'm sorry, can you still see my notes?
I can still see your notes.
Okay, this is not gonna work. I'm wondering if the folks who have my slides there can actually do it for me. My apologies. I'm trying to see if I can get
Okay,
it.
one more suggestion. On the top toolbar, if you go to the slideshow next to the animations, try that. You see
Yes,
slideshow,
I
click
see
on
that.
that, and then go to the far left. You see from beginning,
From beginning, I'm
Yep.
there.
click on that, and I think that should take us away.
Did that do it?
No.
Yeah, that's what I just did. So that's why I'm having some issues here with my presentation slides from, let's see, I can try one more thing. They're nothing.
Nothing. But do you know, we can at least see the slide.
Yeah, but I wasn't hoping you would see my notes. So let me, I'm going to try one more thing. I'm sorry for this. Let me go into presenter mode first.
Now, do you have two computer screens?
Yeah, I have 3 computer screens. That's my.
Okay, then move it. So move it to a different screen.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's do this. Got it. Let's see if this works. My apologies. Let's try one more time. How about here?
That works.
Yay.
You're on.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to hide. My apologies. So I was asked to talk about my dissertation study. And so I was interested in the role of finance and student success, specifically through the lens of resources and the role HSIs play in student success, with the purpose of identifying if expenses and revenues contributed to Latina and Latino student graduation rates. So I had 2 research questions. Do institutional expenditures and revenues predict Latina and Latino graduation rates at HSIs? And does the award of a Title V or Title III grant predict graduation rates at HSIs? So this last question is really important in our current context as institutions strive to become HSI eligible in order to apply for federal funds, right? We've been having that conversation throughout this morning's dialogue. Okay, please advance. There we go. So I did a mixed method study. My quantitative phase for research question 1 produced mixed findings. So for example, an increase in Pell Awards predicted and decrease in graduation rates at 2-year institutions, but not in my 4-year cohorts, as one example. And the mixed findings are in line with the literature. So I'd also like to note that as I went into my next phase of the qualitative, I selected institutions that were showing successful rates. So and I define successful as institutions that had a faster growth rate of Latina and Latino graduation rates compared to the other student populations. So I asked participants in the qualitative phase of my work about their revenues and expenditures and what they did, what they thought it contributed to their success. And the primary response was not about funding. In fact, it was about supportive leadership and also having a cadre of institutional champions. And when I went into research question 2, whether or not the funds were significant predictors, my regression actually showed that they were not significant predictors. However, the grants were being used in significant ways to create buy-in, sustainability of services or programs, and institute high impact practices. And I'm really drilling down a really huge study into 6 slides, so I apologize for that. So one of the things I came up with supportive equity-minded leadership, which provides implicit or absolute guidance to institutional champions. And so to supportive equity-minded leaders at these institutions were viewed as setting the tone for the institution, either through implied and symbolic action or through public acknowledgement of equity-minded agendas. And without this support, innovation would not be as successful for the institutional champions and for the folks on the campuses. Institutional champions showed a passion and commitment to students and had a strong sense of their campus culture, and they fostered like-minded communities and were extremely influential and collaborative. And so while this group discussed strong commitment to students, they also expressed wanting to change and affect change by breaking down barriers in meaningful and significant ways. So research question 1, again, on the delving a little bit deeper on the qualitative side, supportive equity-minded leadership was seen through a lens of commitment and intentionality, such as committed to providing fiscal support, shared values, meant that they were moving in the same direction, and then also transparency, and that they were intentional. Institutional champions had very specific characteristics that made them effective in their work to influence institutional change. But most importantly, institutional champions took their cues from the leadership who demonstrated their equity mindedness, meaning that their leadership, the actions of leaders matter to the campus community, especially to those that are doing the equity work. And then phase 2 for the research question 2, HSI funds not being significant. Well, you know, people might say, well, why are we doing them? I did find some really important things that were happening with campuses that had either HSI grants or campuses that had non-HSI grants, but were also federal grants like Upward Bound Trio. So 9 HSI grants were being used strategically. So you put all of this together, supportive equity-minded leadership, a committed institutional champion or champions, you know, who are now using very strategic approaches in their support of students. It led to what I see as a cultivation of cultures of care. And so I want to end with this slide, cultures of care. And every institution probably has a culture of care. Maybe it's campus-wide, or maybe it's in small pockets here or there with your boutique programs or older established programs. But my work, I think, demonstrates in some ways that student success can be achieved without all of those extra dollars that everyone chases when they get that HSI designation, right? But if you're fortunate enough to have them, I think the questions become, how are those dollars being used to support the success of our students? And if you don't have those dollars, like many of the campuses that are interviewed that are HSIs without that money, I would argue that a strong equity-minded leader gives permission to members of the institution to aim for very bold and creative and innovative ideas and practices that we all know are desperately needed in order for our students to succeed. So imagine how we could accomplish what we could accomplish when equity-minded leadership exists and gives us this permission. And if you're a leader here today, consider your actions, because both verbal and nonverbal, because what I learned in my work is that actions of leaders really matter in how successful you might be as an institution. So I will end there.
Thank you. That was perfectly timed with your timer. So I'm going to turn it over to our discussant, Krishna Foster. Krishna, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just saw that. Classic. As I was saying, thank you, Michelle. And I know I am here to summarize the work of our panelists who you really want to hear. So it's hard not to ask all the questions myself, but that's not my job here. So let me go back and summarize. Thank you to Jennifer Gomez-Chavez, who is speaking for Excelencia in Education. This is a foundation that has a mission to accelerate Latino student success in higher education. This mission is designed to, I would frame it as a way to counsel institutions. Once you're part of this institution, you can work towards the Seal of Excellence, which means you have a learning community wherein you can work to use data, implement practice, and evaluate your leadership on an ongoing basis so that the institution can move forward to empower our students. That was complemented by two groups where we were looking at both from the within the community of community colleges. The Los Angeles College Promise program was presented by Joanna Zimring-Towne and Paulina. And here we're looking at what you can do with a group of students. Of course, they're funded, right? They're eligible for free college at the community college level, but the program is all inclusive. You're not just handing a student a check. You are making sure that they have proper onboarding. It's a holistic program where you have an orientation, counseling, and a transition program. That transition program is followed up then with success counselors who will help a student all the way through the process. Those students are full-time students. So I know Cal State LA has the 15 to finish, which is very controversial. But in this program, we had full workloads for the students from day one, from semester one. They take English, math courses, and they're required to do this at the collegiate level, day one, first semester. And so this has worked very well. 9 colleges have implemented the Promise program in similar ways. Finally, we talked about the data itself. So education, what can we learn through scholarship? So thank you to Cardenas, Costillas, who is working on, who shared summary of her doctorate. Some of the highlights is that money alone is not enough to solve the problem. You really need a holistic approach. Institutions were, the 2-year institutions were more successful than the 4-year institutions in supporting our students in general. Supportive leadership and institutional champions were the largest factor, more important than the dollars alone. And when a leader was equity-minded, this gives champions within the university permission to do what they know they need to do to support the students. So it's not just dollars, but when you have grant dollars come to campus, are they used in a way that's going to empower the community and change the culture, really feeding into the cultural change we've seen in practice. So this is my summary of the events, and we will go back and give you the remaining time to ask the questions that you may have of our outstanding panelists. But first, a big thank you. Okay.
Hola, I'm Doctora Lorena Marquez. I'm the director of the Cross Cultural Centers here at Cal State LA, and I'd like to ask questions. The question for the panelists that I ask is to make sure that the panelists will raise their hands. That can be found in the middle of their Zoom if they want to answer the question. But this time we'll let you know how. At this time, I'll let you know how many questions and answers we will be able to go through. We're looking at about maybe 2 questions with about 2 answers per question. And at this time, I will ask the first question. How can we as HSI institutions acknowledge and work to eliminate colorism and racism towards our Black/African American students and colleagues? Take note of folks that are raising their hand. I see Joanna, if Joanna wants to start.
Sure. I mean, I can speak to how we're doing that in LACCD, and because we are an extremely diverse district, and not all of our institutions are HSI in terms of our 9 colleges. We also have Black serving institutions and API serving institutions, and for us, we are using the LA College Promise program as a way to get to all students. But also I think we have to understand that students need to be seen both individually and then as part of the ethnic group that they may belong to, the neighborhood that they may belong to, the community they belong to, the socioeconomic community that they belong to, all of the different assets that they bring to the institution. And I think that sadly, one of the things that we have seen is maybe some challenge in terms of, Black versus brown in terms of that question of how can we as Hispanic serving institutions also support our Black and African American students. And I think it's really incumbent upon us to address all of our students, our Black and brown students, our Asian Pacific Islander students, our students that identify from all different cultural and ethnic groups. And there's a lot of students that are classified as white students. Certainly some of our students that hail from various Middle Eastern countries and other types of countries that don't necessarily feel like they even have a designation on our campus other than white, but they don't necessarily identify as white. So I think it's really important that we figure out ways to support all of our students without pitting them against each other, and having representation. And that's one of the things that we try to do. And I think one of the ways that LA College Promise is so successful, to what Pauline mentioned, is the use of our peer and near peer connections through our success coaches and our peer peer mentors. And that allows students to have a sense of belonging and community, as long as that is diversely represented. So our success coaches and our peer mentors and our near peer support reflect the student population and can help students through that student experience, because students respond to students, students learn from students. And I think that that's a really impactful way to help support all of our students. Certainly it's important that our institutions reflect the diversity of our student population, but that near peer and peer support, I think, is super crucial to supporting all students at the institution.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes, I want to thank you, Joanna, for that. Through Excelencia, you know, we offer, well, we work, right, as institutions do their inward look and reflection. And I might want to add that the seal of Excelencia is a rigorous process, but it's in institutions that are willing to commit to be thoughtful, to be honest about how they're serving students. And it's an opportunity to look not just at Latino student success, but how all students are succeeding. And so this question comes up. And so what I say is that this is a difficult, this is difficult to respond to, because we are right in the midst of seeing, I think, organizations really try to make us compete against one another. But through our technical assistance, through learning opportunities, we're able to unpack that and figure out how we can work together on this common cause.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that sentiment in terms of just making sure that we are constantly addressing the white supremacy nature that occurs. And so pitting against each other is definitely not our approach. Second question that I have is that many of the people attending our educational practitioners and leaders, what advice would you give to them about the path to Excelencia? What concrete actions might you suggest for HSI to truly serve their student population? So moving beyond the words, as we have said throughout this whole conference.
Well, I'll go ahead and go again. So, you know, we really believe that leadership matters, but we also believe in empowering, you know, practitioners, empowering the leaders that are doing the work to raise, you know, the concerns, and to have a safe place to raise those concerns, because many of us do believe that we are doing good work, and we are. But as we look at the data, you know, and as we really look to see if we are being intentional instead of just enrolling students, we are finding that many practices are really focused on just enrolling students. And so I would say that it takes from, you know, top to bottom, from bottom to top, to have those conversations. And I hope that leaders who really want to transform their institutions, you know, empower their staff, faculty, and students to raise these concerns and together formulate a plan of action.
Anyone else? I think we have time for one more question. So the second question, numerically, Hispanic serving institutions educate a more diverse student body than predominantly white institutions and historically Black colleges. Yet research from different studies has shown that Latinx faculty, along with African American and Asian faculty, have voiced that they work in unsupportive climates and call for greater representation on their campus. First, any thoughts about this, and what can we do to change it?
And I can start with that. Sorry, I've had my hand raised, so I wasn't sure if you could see that. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I actually want to go back to a little bit. I think to me, this question is connected to the first question, which is there has to be a recognition of the changing identity of an HSI. When you are classified and become an eligible, even when you're moving into that 25% mark, the identity of your institution is changing, and is changing at probably very rapid rates in most instances, right? What we've learned in the research is that the growth of Latino and Latina students at HSIs, first of all, they're focused, 67 or 68% of Latinx students are focused at the 15 or 17% of all HSI, of the HSIs, right? Or HSIs, which makes 17% of all the institutions in the US. 67% are concentrated at our HSIs. So there has to be a recognition of that. Once there's a recognition of that, there also has to be a recognition that you're not only serving the Latinx and Latinx students, you're serving probably the larger number of African-American students, a larger number of APITA students, a larger number of indigenous and tribal students than HBCUs and tribal colleges combined. So that's an important aspect, I think, to acknowledge. I think the key is, how are the leaders on the institutions moving that identity forward, and how are they also implicitly or in action giving, again, this permission, as I talked about in my study, to move that forward. So if you don't have that, I think it's very difficult for faculty to feel safe, to feel comfortable, to feel that they can do certain work, right? And I think that's key. Unfortunately, I think that that's a much more difficult thing to come by, right? Because everything to some extent trickles down. But if you don't have enough of a foundation of your institutional champions, it doesn't trickle up. So you kind of want it to happen on both ends, on the top and on the bottom. And so I think that's really one of the first steps, is to the identity. And someone said it in the chat earlier, we are no longer predominantly white institutions, and we have to function like we are creating a brand new, we have to reconstruct our idea of what an institution looks like to serve first generation students, to serve low income Pell students. We have to reconstitute that, we have to reframe that. And I think once you do that and you have bold leadership to help you move in that direction, then I think some of these other things can be addressed in a much more holistic way. So I will stop there.
Thank you. And I think that that's our time for this panel question and answer. Thank you so much for everyone for participating and being here in this panel. And there's a lot of questions and answers that can also be provided in the chat. So please continue to provide some input there. And at this time, I'm going to pass it on to my next colleague.
Gracias. And I do want to ask if our Dean Hawley, if you can share screen with the slide that you have for the special announcement. And while she's doing that, I do want to let you know that you just saw Dr. Lorena Marquez, and she is the director of the Cross-Cultural Center. Yay. She's doing amazing work. She just arrived and she hit the ground running, and she's a sponsor for today's event. So I want to thank her, but also thank her for being part of our slide. Okay, so talking about leadership is really important, and what do we do? So our campus and Dr. Hawley is the PI for the DHSI grant that Cal State LA received, and we are happy to announce that there are 4 different faculty fellows, and they're listed here. And so we wanted to congratulate them, because they are going to be those leaders in terms of our faculty to trying and hit those numbers and get those equity gaps. So we wanted to thank the faculty fellows, congratulate them, and let them know that we are hungry for their work and excited about the progress that they're going to bring to Cal State LA. And on that note, right, leadership is critical. The seal is important because it gives us a vision, right, to kind of rise up. And some people are dragging their feet, right? So hopefully this will light the fire under them, because we at Cal State LA, we want that seal, right? We want to get it, because that means that our students are graduating, not just attending. And so in the words of Jose Vasconcelos, right? At this moment, we do not come to work for the university, but demand that the university work for our people. And the following people that I want to mention right now have made strides in helping all of Cal State LA, all of our students, all of our gente, right? And so leadership does matter. And so the following, I want to go through a list of people really quickly, have pushed boundaries, right? That's the Cal State LA model of pushing boundaries. And so we have Dean Emily Allen and Associate Dean Jane Dong from the College of Engineering, Computer Science, and Technology, who are working this EcoSTEM grant that is making fabulous progress for our students. In addition, Krishna Foster, who you met earlier, and Andre Ellis, who is behind the scenes right now, they are part of leaders in the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, inclusive excellence program that is training faculty learning communities and really making a difference here at Cal State LA. In addition, we also want to honor the work of Tony Hernandez. He is from the Charter College of Education, and he received the Promesa grant doing a wonderful community work. And also Dr. Rita Ledesma from who is the HHS Dean, Health and Human Services Associate Dean, and she brought to our campus the Educational Community Health Outreach ECHO program. And so we're really excited. All of this work has been at Cal State LA, and given the pandemic, the planning committee just decided, you know, what is happening now? It's devastating for us, for everybody, and especially our students. And so there's still good work going on, right? These are the Army, that tsunami that Dr. Aida Hurtado has talked about. And so at this time, I want to acknowledge 2 staff members who have really done some heavy lifting, and we have one here with us today. Dr. Agustin Cervantes has done amazing work in the Charter College of Education, but we also want to thank Daniel Galvan, who's here today. And so we want, come, don't be shy, Daniel. Daniel has done a lot of work, and so we want to recognize you and thank you. So you're representing all the staff here at Cal State LA who really do thankless job, tireless job. You are our Águila de Oro. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Okay, and the next list of people, you know, it's really, really huge that I want to thank. Is the faculty, right? And so there are faculty, there's a list of them. You're going to see them on the next slide. And it's a huge list, right? And these are the people that we've looked at that since COVID have been open to change, open and up to the challenge to serve our Chicanx, Latinx students of color all across Cal State LA. And so we have one with us today. Professor Mauricio Castillo is here, but as you could see, there's a ton of others. So he's representing our faculty. And so we do have an award for him being a Águila de Oro. Gracias, Mauricio. Yes, and I think it's really critical that we understand, you know, Alejandro Covarrubias is on the chat, and he's been doing wonderful community work. Coach Tina Fernandez supports our student athletes who have a hard time, right, playing during COVID. And Clea Tucker, the professor in kinesiology, she is the leader of the LBDC, bringing us all together, all our faculty of color. Kidogo Kennedy, who is one of the faculty fellows, and Michelle Lopez, who is amazing in our CLS department. So I want to thank you for helping the university do the work for its students. The last person I do want to mention, last but not least, is Professor Nadine Bermudez, who is down the street from Cal State LA doing excellent work at ELAC, East Los Angeles Community College. She has the bridge for that campus to Cal State LA, UCLA, lots of great programming. So we want to honor her, who represents the LA Los Angeles Community College District today. So thank you all for helping the university and push us to remind us we have to look forward to the future. So our next panel will begin shortly. Thank you so much.